Hi everyone. There are many questions that have been puzzling people around the world for a long time. Some of them are related to everyday life, for example, how the internet works, but other questions are truly mysterious. And today, we've picked up the most interesting of them especially for you. Are you ready to solve some mysteries?
I don't know.
Then let's get it on. Why hasn't the Titanic raised to the surface? The Titanic, the world's largest passenger liner, sank in the Atlantic Ocean due to a collision with an iceberg on April 15, 1912, on its way from Southampton to New York. There were more than 2,200 people on board, including the crew, and only about 700 passengers managed to survive. There were many reasons behind the disaster, but today we're not talking about that. Today's question is why, after so many years, the legendary ship has not risen to the surface. Yes, we know wanting to raise the Titanic may seem a bit strange. After all, for the entire existence of humankind, many ships have sunk in the world's oceans, most of which still lie at the bottom of the ocean and nobody really cares about them. So what's so special about the Titanic? Well, it's not about the passion for the history of this particular ship or the love for the James Cameron movie. According to the documents, the Titanic was transporting a collection of jewelry worth about $300 million. In addition, it was carrying the original Omar Khayyam's rubaiyat and a mummy of an ancient Egyptian princess. Moreover, many of the passengers took their personal jewelry on the trip. It's an underwater treasure. So okay, if there are so many treasures lying on the bottom, isn't that supposed to encourage researchers to get them as soon as possible? After all, is that not what Elon Musk does? In fact, attempts have been made to raise the Titanic to the surface. Actually, people really wanted to do this, but they just couldn't find it. No, seriously. Turns out it's quite possible to lose a 269-meter ship on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, especially in the early 20th century. In the end, the Titanic was discovered, but it happened 73 years after the disaster. The wreckage of the ship lay at a depth of about 3,800 meters and was scattered over a large territory. But once the researchers looked at the remains of the liner up close, it became clear it wouldn't stand the rise to the surface. The famous ship lay in salt water at great depth for too long. In the end, people abandoned the idea of getting the Titanic, giving it the status of underwater cultural heritage instead. Why do people disappear in the Bermuda Triangle? Stop any person on the street and ask them, where on earth do people disappear most often? They'll most likely say the Bermuda Triangle. Oh yeah, this place is literally shrouded in an atmosphere of secrets and paranormality. On an area of about 3 million square kilometers, aircraft and ships are regularly lost. It's no wonder that the Bermuda Triangle is so loved by those who support theories about the curvature of space, aliens, Atlantis, and other things of this kind. After all, if an airplane or a ship disappears, it most likely means they've been abducted by extraterrestrial civilizations. Although, people can never explain why these civilizations would ever need human aircraft and ships, but at least it sounds like a great horror story for sensitive people. But how many of these stories are true, and why people in this area actually disappear? Well, the Bermuda Triangle really has the shape of a triangle, the corners of which are Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. And planes did disappear from the radars, and some ships did sink here. However, these events are not that mystic. The area itself is very difficult for navigation due to the large number of shoals, cyclones, and storms. It's the perfect atmosphere to create a myth about the disappearance of ships. However, it's impossible that all ships run aground here, which means there must be something else. UFologists will proudly exclaim that it's the work of aliens, but we have a more realistic possibility, even two. The first one is methane emissions. According to this theory, huge bubbles of methane formed in the water, and when they hit ships and planes, they immediately drown or fall. The second option is 30-meter wandering waves, which can arise from nowhere and easily drown ships. But there is a third option. This may seem strange, but the famous Bermuda Triangle is not among the 10 most dangerous spaces for ships on the planet. Yes, ships sink here and go missing no more often than in other parts of the world's oceans, and the same can be said for airplanes. What were the pyramids built for? We've all seen the ancient pyramids built several millennia ago in photographs, in textbooks, or even in real life. Usually nobody questions their purpose. We all know they were created to put something inside, like a mummy of a pharaoh, because the pharaohs or some other rulers are people who deserve respect, so this function of the pyramids seems quite understandable. Or does it? For example, in the Great Pyramids of Giza, also known as the Pyramids of Cheops, the largest of the Egyptian pyramids, the room for the sarcophagus of the Cheops itself is of secondary importance. Why was it even named after this pharaoh? Because his name was written in the room. But this is not the most interesting thing about it. The fact is that all pyramids have one feature in common: small rooms with passages that are so narrow that it's difficult to walk through them, and almost impossible to drag a sarcophagus with a pharaoh inside. The length of some mines leading to these mysterious chambers reaches 30 meters. Hence, they were built for some purpose, because they were really hard to build. Yes, there is a version that through these mines they lifted the workers outside after the construction was completed. But why did they need small rooms? And not just rooms, but rooms finished with granite, a material that can absorb radiation. And, for example, in the Pyramid of the Sun in Mexico, there are 7-centimeter layers of mica between the floors, which poor builders had to travel for 3,000 kilometers to get. And it's unlikely that the material was chosen because it shone pretty. Actually, this mica had the property of slowing down nuclear reactions. Coincidence? But let's look at the arrangement of the pyramids. Many of them stand on solid rocky grounds and have survived thanks to this, but at the same time they're close to the junction of lithospheric plates and geological faults. That is, in places where a serious earthquake may well occur. But how can all this be related to radiation? Well, there is a version that the pyramids were erected not for the sake of the rulers, but because a long time ago they prevented natural cataclysms. Perhaps with the help of nuclear equipment which was stored in those tiny rooms, covered with granite. What is the purpose of crystal skulls? Probably everyone who loves adventure films knows the story of Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skulls. Well, you remember, an ancient temple, transparent skulls of unusual shape, Cate Blanchett and a flying saucer destroying everything. Oh, and there was also a fridge used in a nuclear explosion.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
However, unlike similar household appliances of increased strength, crystal skulls do exist. Currently there are 13 of them, 13 models of a human skull made of rock crystal. 9 mysterious artifacts are in private collections, and the remaining 4 are exhibited in museums. It's believed that each of these skulls is not less than 500 years old, and they were made with the help of a secret technology of the Mayan tribes, which scientists can't even understand today. Some particularly bold scientists say that the skulls are not 500, but several thousand years old, and they didn't undergo any treatment at all. So is this real proof of the existence of alien civilizations? Or even cooler? According to legend, if you collect all 13 artifacts at a certain time in a certain place, then an unknown miracle will happen.
He can do it with the snap of his fingers.
Perhaps a portal into another dimension will open or something like that. But what is the real purpose of these skulls? Well, despite the fact that the Mayans were indeed a developed civilization, they still did not own the secret technology of making skulls from crystal. And the mysterious visitors of our planet thousands of years ago didn't know either. Scientists have examined the crystal skulls and found that they were carved in the 19th and 20th centuries, and not very accurately. In addition, the material from which the artifacts were made was not from America at all, but from Switzerland or Germany, quite far from the Mayan civilization, huh? And the purpose of these crystal sculptures, unfortunately, is only one thing: to create another beautiful, mystical legend. How and why the MOAI were created. Do you know what a MOAI is? Perhaps the word seems unfamiliar, but that's only at first glance. The MOAI are these huge stone statues found on Easter Island. Those weird heads with long earlobes, big noses, and an unfriendly look. In total, more than 900 of these statues have been found on the tiny Pacific island, with an area of 163.6 square meters. Each MOAI is made from a single piece of volcanic rock, while the height of some reaches 10 meters and the weight exceeds 80 tons. All the statues are similar to each other, and nobody can explain what they are. When you live on a small island cut off from the whole world and with a small amount of resources, you're unlikely to have a desire to waste your time on statues, or not. For a long time, the appearance of the MOAI on the island was a mystery. Some even suspected that aliens were involved in this business. Well, of course, it's always aliens.
Get out of here. Get out of here, man. Shit, I'm saying.
In addition, the legends of the islanders weren't very accurate either. According to these stories, the MOAI were able to walk on their own. Not very convincing. But in the 50s, the Norwegian traveller Thor Heyerdahl sailed to Easter Island with an expedition and decided to create a MOAI statue on his own. And, unexpectedly for himself, he found locals who not only knew how the stone statues were made and transported, but they were also ready to tell about it. So why didn't they tell anyone before? Well, because no one asked. In the end, it turned out that the MOAI were made in the quarry with the help of stone hammers. Ancient inhabitants of the island didn't have other instruments. The statue was placed on round cobblestones, pushed with logs, pulled with ropes, and it seemed to be walking to the right place on its own. And they say that legends are all made up. However, what exactly MOAI meant for the ancient inhabitants of the island is still unknown. Perhaps these are the statues of their ancestors.
Amazing gadgets, upcoming technologies, incredible inventions, and other cool stuff related to high tech on TechZone. Subscribe, you won't regret it. The link is on the screen and in the description.
Thanks for watching. Please like and share the video in social networks, and we'll be right back to you as fast as we can.